All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 6 of KBcast. We have a packed week this week, and we have a special guest, Matthew Kochakian, talking about his project portal, building tools for thought in Web3. The first major event of the week was the Expo with DeFi and Regen projects this past Monday, which was really interesting to go into regenerative finance as well as DeFi. DeFi was a big topic this week, right, Yaji?
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of conversations about that. And also on top with the grant application, all the jamming on funding. So yeah, I guess mentioning about the DeFi, I'll just jump into the grant stuff. Since after the expo, people pivoting all their pitching towards the grant application, like for Gitcoin or any other open source grant out there. So thanks for Salim for doing the pitch bingo, and Huang and Suzy doing the Twitter space and grand showcase, which is a really nice format for people to practice in a short time, 2 minutes, and getting the feedback iteration. I didn't go to that in person, but I watched the video on YouTube, which is really helpful.
And yeah, also, lots of fellows leaning in and helping, which is great, helping each other out.
That's right. Yeah, it is. It's definitely nice to hear people's feedback, and then you can iterate on your conversation and on what you're writing on the pitch deck. And oh yeah, by the way, thanks for everyone donating to KBcast. Right, we are really appreciating all the donations coming out there, and we will posting a show note. We're posting a link of all the kernel project that is currently active on Gitcoin to help everyone, putting more donations towards the kernel projects.
Yeah, thank you all for donating to all the KB5, the great KB5 projects.
Yeah.
And I think Yaji, you also attended some of the juntos regarding DeFi as well. I attended a couple of them, but love to hear your take.
Sure, yeah. I honestly really love a lot of DeFi sessions, learning a lot more about different protocol and projects. Mostly, I think organized by Ali and Nick. And really, thank you guys for putting all together. The DeFi 102 this week covers a variety of topics, including the standard of DeFi protocol, DeFi inspiration from other economic system, and auctions, which is quite interesting, forward-looking topic. I'll mention a little bit about the auction. Honestly, I didn't think too much about the auction for the Web3 world. And when Ali mentioned about this topic, it really made me thinking more about how you make the seller and the buyer market more efficient using some newer auction tools that is using in the traditional finance world. And as for the tokenomic study group, we had 2 sessions this week. One is on Tuesday, and talk about chapter 2, 3, 4. And this Saturday in the morning, we had 1 session for chapter 5 for the 7 wonders of crypto tokenomics. And another shout out to Rumi. I think his real name is actually Mohammed Hamid. He helped organize a Q&A session with the author of the book, Lisa, on March 24th, 11 a.m. GMT. So make sure if you have any questions on the book, anything you want to talk with the author, put the question to the forum Ali organized. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Even that's like 7 a.m. on my time, I'll get up for that.
Yeah, that's a huge grab by Mohammed to get Lisa to talk with us, literally the author of the book. I know she's quite receptive to engaging with readers of the book. I know she had responded to some comments I'd made on Twitter as well, but she's definitely an expert on the topic. I thought the DeFi 102 sessions were really interesting too. Mm-hmm. Auctions, but also especially when it comes to NFT sales and IDOs and ICOs, but also the inspirations from other economic systems. It seems like Ali has a very interesting background in looking into those systems across informal financial systems and how that could really inspire a lot of the decentralized finance offerings that exist on the market and will exist in the future.
Right. Yeah,
I also hosted
yeah.
a Junto for, it might be the first time, I forget if I hosted another one, but this is at least my first official Junto hosting on the history of venture DAOs. So we'll post more about that later, but I highly recommend looking into Malak DAO, Metacartel Ventures, and other seminal organizations in the venture DAO historical books, and they have been really critical to driving a lot of investment in the Web3 space as well. Yaji, I know you were talking
Great
about.
job on that, Sean. Yeah, I really love that overview on the history. I just have to say that to the public here now. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for attending and supporting. I really appreciate it. I know, Yaji, you also organized your first KB IRL meetup, right?
That's right. Yeah, finally got that happen. It's only 3 of us yesterday, and but that's the beginning. Taigang and Hanifa showed up, and we almost had Mohammed on there, but he got a rain check in the last minute. We'll have more in the coming weeks after knowing the first time is a little bit tricky on the logistic and some organization, but I think we will do a lot better in the coming weeks. And all right, moving on to the guilds. This week we have full blown on the guilds, right, Sean? Get like every single guild I think out there.
Yeah, I think every guild had a session. I think we skipped a lot last week because of Expo Week, but
that's true. Yeah.
Love to hear your take on the Regen Guild as well as DeSci Guild. I think you attended both, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the Regen one still organized by John, Holly, and Ali. And it was a really interesting brainstorming session. Honestly, every time I go to a Regen session, it's just like a really blowing my mind how people can think a very broad and diverse way. And for this one, I really love the conversation about leveraging point. He saying about how to intervene a system. Most of the intervention, people tackling the small, like lower hanging fruit, which have lower impact but easy to do. That's the people mostly want to do because they can show the result. And the harder and deeper leveraging point, most of the time it's harder to achieve, but it will have a way higher transformative impact, which really remind me thinking about a lot of those problems we are tackling in the DeFi world, in the finance world. It's just like a lot of things people want to do a small little tool, and it's more in the item space versus when you are tackling to a molecular size problem. It's harder to do, but you will really achieving more impact. It's just shifting people's attention to doing some of the harder to do problem, but it's very important to the space, to the universe. And another session I went to was very interesting, the DeSci Guild. It was a lot of brainstorming on like how to use Web3, help with the science space. Science is traditionally kind of more bureaucracy, a lot of controlling by the academic industry, like an organization like university and a few of those scientific publication space. And Nate did organize a kind of interesting discussion around the various topic on DeSci. And the part I really enjoy is on the content publishing side and organizational space. Like organizational space is one, like thinking overall, like the space for academic have a lot of hierarchy in there. Now we can use some of the Web3 tool like a DAO and some of the NFT stuff to help people doing content more transparent, and peer review being more like anyone can do peer review instead of a high barrier. So that was some interesting discussion in there. And later on in the week we have a token guild. I went that one too. I really enjoyed that with the Ruben Q&A, but I'll ask you, I'm curious about your feedback on that.
Yeah, I think that was a great guild. I want to respect the house rules to not share too much outside of the discussion. So I'll say that it was largely a focus on risk mitigation and how to think about that. with various Web3 projects that you would launch. I think the key point that I took away is first focus on what you need in your project versus the starting with the legal structure and then working your way backwards. That's really critical. And I think the point is like, so many of these organizations don't need to have these legal wrappers, LLC wrappers or the like. That's oftentimes overkill. The other key points are to consider what you market in your claims, and that'll determine whether or not that is a security. So just be very careful with what you claim in terms of future revenue opportunities or the like, or future appreciation potential. The other guild that I attended, and I think Yaji, you were there as well, is the DAOs and Dragon Guild, where Isaac led us through another great session. This time a little less hands-on in actually building the tactical parts of building a DAO, but actually brainstorming some DAO ideas in breakout groups. There was some very interesting ones around food. I think it was called the Chef DAO.
Yeah,
Underground
I like that
dinners,
idea.
which seem to be pretty popular. Effective altruism DAO. So like, how do we actually drive more good in the world using a DAO and taking part in the effective altruism movement? And I think the most popular one was the meme DAO. And I think we have a lot of meme fans, meme degens in the group as well. Had a great discussion around whether or not you should create a DAO around the problem. Like there's a big discussion around, do you need to DAO or not to DAO? And when DAO should actually be killed off. That should also be a question, especially with the birth of so many different DAOs. Unfortunately, I think neither of us attended the Gaming Guild with Nathan Schneider, but I know that was a great discussion around some of the mechanics and philosophies behind play to earn gaming, and definitely recommend everyone to watch that video.
Yep, definitely. And also, end of the week, we had a fair chat with Andy talking about the token incentives. Did you go to that one, Sean?
I attended that one as well. I thought it was great. It's hard to summarize all the great thoughts that Andy provided, and it covered a number of different topics that we had this week, including listening and incentive models and the like. I'd rather than try to summarize it, I'd rather encourage folks to listen to the recap, which is also posted publicly as well. But it's great that we have Andy as one of the stewards of Kernel and has such a rich background and interesting perspective on the space.
Definitely, yeah. And, cool.
Up next, we have Matthew Kochakian, who is the founder of Portal and as well as a KB5 fellow. We're excited to have you on the podcast, Matthew. Could you share a little bit more about yourself and what got you to come up with the idea for Portal?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. It's actually my first podcast ever, so I'm
awesome.
Excited. But yeah, I'll explain a little bit more about Portal and then maybe myself. So Portal is a simple collaborative workspace for DAOs, and it's oriented around Discord. So you don't have to manage two sources of truth. You don't have to go anywhere else. Everything comes from Discord. And we're attempting to be the sort of document editor for communities, starting with DAOs. We have a workspace that's organized around a timeline very specifically, so that everyone in the community can see what's happening in the organization all at once in one place. So that's documents, edits, tasks, and really any other event that we can expand to. So there's lots of stuff to do in there. And then as far as me, I've been doing startups for the last few years. I study business at NYU Stern. I'm a designer, an engineer, just like all around product builder.
Thank you, Matthew. So you're saying this Portal is like collaboration. It's kind of like sounds like a Trello board plus a GitHub in there. Is that the sort of the tool you can use on?
It's always funny to like try to pin like the acronym or the analogy of like, it's this for that, or it's X for Y, or it is very, I think it's very actually similar to GitHub. Sorry.
GitHub, okay.
GitHub is like actually kind of like, I mean, there's Rome Research, there's Notion, right? There's all these different things to compare to, but I think there's a really apt comparison to GitHub, because GitHub kind of for whatever reason, catalyzed this open source movement. I mean, it wasn't the place where it was created, but the open source code movement kind of lives in GitHub for a lot of ways. And right now, there's not really a place that's doing that for DAOs. DAOs are kind of these like open sourced human coordination engines, right, or entities. And they're collectively creating this almost open source community and movement, but there's no GitHub for that today. And obviously, like the GitHub for this is not going to look exactly like the GitHub for the open source code movement, but there's nothing that really kind of centralizes things. There's nothing that's the place to go for everyone to be on, for all the information to be, except Discord, right? Discord is that thing today. And Discord, you hear a lot of people complain about Discord because there's certain things it doesn't do really well. And so the idea is to have Portal play more of that GitHub type of role.
I know one of the big pain points I have with Discord is that it's really hard to keep track of what's going on.
Yeah.
You have to almost be in the Discord server 24/7 to actually stay on top of things. And I'd imagine you'd be able to trying to solve some of those pain points as well. One thing I heard from a prior conversation we had was that you were talking about this notion of capturing information even across communities as well, not just within a single community. Would love to learn a bit more about how you're thinking about that in terms of almost like interoperability to a certain degree.
Yeah, there was a tweet that I saw a while back that said that the collaboration between DAOs is going to be more important than the collaboration within DAOs. And I think that's really true. I think you're actually starting to see that already. The big area is service DAOs, right? So you have legal service DAOs, you have designer service DAOs, you have engineer service DAOs. Like I'm in developer DAO, and that's an example of an engineer service DAO. And you have these organizations that are going to work with other organizations. They're going to, and even if they don't even if they don't necessarily do something with the other organization, like they still exist in the same ecosystem. They might want to know about that organization. They might have, maybe they like quote them from something. And so you kind of have these areas, and I think there's going to be a lot more areas, but you have areas already where DAOs are kind of reaching across the aisle and talking to each other in whatever way. And the way that we're trying to go with Portal is to build that into a workspace, to basically give people that ability inside of a workspace. Because if you look at a workspace right now, right, like Notion or any of the other tools, I love Notion, right? But one thing it doesn't do well is help communities talk to each other or help companies talk to each other, right? Because the idea is like, you're working inside of your company, right? You're not like, why does a company need to share a workspace or share anything in their workspace with anyone else? They don't. If they do, they give you these sharing tools that let you kind of send something. But creating a single network where communities can start to make things together or quote each other or kind of collaborate or do anything together, that's kind of not something that you've had as much of until now and increasing in the future.
That's a very interesting idea. So collaborating between different DAOs, I really like that part. How does Discord channel, they have a different server, so you jump in between the two. If you want to be collaborating together, I imagine it's like a kind of a big service, and they can just tag on this person to get connected. How does this interconnection bridge, I guess you imagine that to be?
You mean between Discord and Portal?
Yeah, like between different DAOs or between different organizations. How does this connection between the two will work? Different DAO have their different rules, different organizations, they have their own boundary. How does this connection bridge will, connecting the two?
Yeah, so every organization or every really entity of any kind that's on Portal, because it's not just going to be organizations, it's also people, it's also topics in general. And so anything that is on Portal has basically two states. There's the private state of their information and there's the public state of the information. And if you use something like Roam, like that's very good at curating like a private knowledge graph, something that maybe you share a few of the edges, but like mostly private. Portal is the public version of that, or at least it has the public version of that. It also has the private version, but and so it has a public version that other people can link to, other people can pull from, other people can reference. So this idea of block referencing in Roam is actually pulling content. So like, for example, if you have a contact page and you have emails on that contact page, in a sort of more social networky version of Roam, you can just pull the email into another workspace. And if anyone ever updates that email, it gets updated in your workspace too. So you could have a spreadsheet of, for example, maybe you have a customer spreadsheet and you've got the contact info for people at Uniswap, people at Syndicate, people at Portal, people at any of these other organizations in crypto, and they've all got a contact email and phone number, something like that. If they change that, that would reflect in your spreadsheet because you're pulling content across workspaces. You're basically going to the authority of the information for each thing and then pulling whatever the most up-to-date info is with this system of block references. And you can do all this across workspaces, which is kind of the key idea here. It's like, it's not just within one workspace because you have this kind of stuff in Rome. It's across every workspace. And as soon as you make that content public, so as soon as an organization decides like, this is the thing that we want everyone to see, well, then all of a sudden people can start jumping in and pulling that content and interacting with it across workspaces.
I see.
Lots of combinatorial possibilities once you open that up open up the boundaries across different organizations, which is super fascinating and really brings some new ideas to the tools for thought space, I feel like. And I'm curious, I know we had talked before as well, Rome research is probably one of your, I think you mentioned one of your inspirations as well, at least from a private tools for thought space, but curious as well, if we look at the kind of broader tools for thought space, like what are some of your favorite tools for thought projects out there, and what do you draw inspiration from outside of GitHub as well? But you had mentioned that earlier.
It's a great question. I draw a lot of inspiration actually from Discord itself. I will say, obviously you mentioned it, but Rome is a big inspiration, and I told a lot of people in person this, but not as much online. But I at one point interviewed at Rome, so I was like right after they launched. It was all over this, and I had a bunch of kind of things that I brought to them, and one of the things that we talked about in that conversation that I brought up was this idea of making things more social, and that's not something that the tool did. And so I basically have spent time since then working on this idea, because I really do believe that this kind of thing should be social. But the other inspiration that I mentioned, Discord, the reason that I'm inspired by Discord is because Discord, for whatever reason, right, the timeline has been kind of like, they kind of were competing with like different companies, and now they've got a wedge into Discord, but however they did it, right, they have a wedge into Slack's business.
Right.
Not Discord, Slack. So they have a wedge into Slack's business. And we want to do something very similar to the document ecosystem, right? This market for workspace collaboration tools, where we're creating a wedge into that market for communities. So Discord is a community-specific communication platform, right? Whereas Slack is for companies. If you look at like Notion, Google Docs, all these tools for companies, we want to do that for communities. And so we're thinking a lot of the same strategy about how, for example, Discord is user first, where Slack is not user first, right? Slack, you're a different person in every community or every company you join. In Discord, you're the same person across workspaces. Things like permissions, all of that stuff. Like, we're sort of taking cues from Discord on as we figure out our strategy.
Interesting. Are you envisioning all the data on this graph network on your portal all still stored in the database, or any of the new data storage location? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, we're not going to be launching a token anytime soon. Okay. I can say that. But in all seriousness, the sort of broader vision, the long-term vision for Portal, is to create a single shared topic graph for the whole world. So most people know Google has this topic graph that, when you search for something, you search for a topic, it might give you that kind of window pane of information about the topic. There's a topic graph underneath there that is getting that information. And so the idea behind Portal is to create one of these things that's owned by the community. So it might be a different kind of type of information, of course. There's a lot of differences, but it's a topic graph that can be used to build other things, and it's owned by the community. So maybe a search engine will be built on top of it, maybe encyclopedia, maybe other social networks and services and things like that. But it'll be built on top of this shared topic graph that's owned by everyone. And so, so we intend to decentralize that topic graph. Absolutely. We don't, maybe we would eventually decentralize the organization itself. That part I haven't, honestly, we haven't like thought about yet. It's just too early, but it absolutely, we intend to decentralize the underlying topic graph. So how does that happen? Well, we haven't really started thinking about it technically. So I don't know if it would be like it's in a database right now. So I don't know if it would be maybe on IPFS. I know Mira uses Arweave, so there's lots of options. And my sense is the longer we wait, the longer we don't have to do this, the better and better the options will get. And then we'll have, and we'll also, grow as an organization. And so we'll have a better pick over time. And, when it is really crucial, we'll do that. But today we need to build the tool. So that has to come first.
Focus on the functionality and users first, then the data storage. I think that makes sense.
Well, because after all, right, Discord is not decentralized, right? And everyone's okay with Discord. So right now, it's not the support.
For now, the Web3 community is fairly receptive to using it. Just to wrap up things, I'm curious what a combo question for you. What brought you to Kernel in the first place? And two, what is one thing you would want to ask of other Kernel fellows or the greater public audience out there that could help with Portal?
Great question. Yeah, I joined Kernel to meet other interesting people like you folks and all the wonderful people that I've met so far, both in person and online. Like the quality of people in Kernel is just so high. Everyone is so excited. Everyone is interested in a lot of the same things, and everyone is willing to help one another. Like I've been just astounded by the willingness of folks to make introductions, to meet, to coach, just everything. It's been absolutely amazing. And what I would say to other people in terms of how they could help Portal, or even who are looking to join Kernel and just kind of join this ecosystem, is to really just focus on building things that people are going to use to do stuff in the real world. I firmly believe that that's where we need to take this ecosystem, that we need to start really organizing things kind of in the real world. And so with Portal, we're trying to do that, right? We're trying to give these organizations a way to build things together, to communicate and build things, right? To collaborate together and to ultimately do things. Like, for example, one of my favorite DAOs is Links DAO, and they're working on either buying or building a country club. And I think we have to realize that the people that are going to come into the crypto ecosystem in the next few years, right? They're in the real world. They're out there doing things that have nothing to do with crypto. And as the ecosystem expands, like as we build more products for those people, right, to do things off chain, outside the ecosystem, and really bridge these two worlds together, Portal is going to be hopefully a really big part of that. And I think a lot of the projects that people are building in Kernel are going to be a really big part of that. So I don't know if there's any piece of direction in there, but I think everyone that's building something cool that's really expanding this ecosystem out into the real world, I love that. And that's the kind of thing that I'm really excited about.
That's cool.
Real world applications, and that's a great call out to a lot of the Web3 projects out there to focus on real problems out there. So we appreciate you being on the podcast, Matthew. Once again, Matthew is building Portal. You can reach Portal at onportal.xyz. And please reach out to Matthew if you can help in any way with Portal or want to use or join Portal.
Yeah, I will say one final thing. If you are interested in tools for thought and crypto and where that intersects, please reach out. My email is matthew@onportal.xyz. But would love to talk.
Thank you, Matthew, for your time.
Thank you.